The spaceship Odyssey glided silently above the glowing surface of the planet Valara. Its hull shimmered under the strange light of the twin suns, reflecting the deep blues and purples of the alien sky. Lieutenant Auric Kane stared out the viewport, heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. He had traveled across countless light years, seen countless alien worlds, but Valara was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The planet's surface was alive with light. Forests glowed softly, rivers shimmered with a faint silver hue, and towering crystalline structures jutted into the sky like jagged mountains of glass. Strange creatures darted among the trees, leaving trails of luminous dust behind them. From orbit, the planet seemed peaceful, almost magical. Yet Auric knew that appearances could be deceiving. "Lieutenant Kane, you're going to want to see this," said Dr. Mara Elson, the team's chief xenobiologist, pointing to a vast city floating above the planet's oceans. Its towers hovered effortlessly, casting reflections on the water below. "This is where the Veyari live. We've studied them for years, but no human has ever set foot near them, especially near the females." Auric turned to Mara, curiosity lighting his eyes. "Why? Are they dangerous?" Mara shook her head slowly. "Not in a physical way, but they have abilities, mental abilities, some form of psychic influence. No other species has been able to withstand it without losing focus, or worse, becoming confused. That's why everyone keeps their distance." Auric nodded, feeling a thrill of challenge. Humans had always been underestimated in interstellar encounters, yet somehow, their curiosity and adaptability often allowed them to do what others could not. "We'll be careful," he said, though inside a spark of defiance burned. Careful was one thing. Afraid was another, and Auric had never been afraid to explore where others hesitated. The Odyssey touched down in a clearing near the floating city. Its landing engines hummed softly, stirring the glowing grass beneath them. The team disembarked slowly, scanning the surroundings with their instruments. The air was rich and warm, carrying a faint, sweet scent that none of them could identify. Strange plants bent slightly toward them, as if acknowledging their presence. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then from above the crystalline towers, shapes began to descend. The Veyari. They moved like liquid shadows, graceful and precise. At first, Auric thought they were spirits of the planet, reflections of light and color. But as they landed softly among the humans, he realized they were very real. The Veyari females were breathtaking. Their forms were tall and slender, almost ethereal. Their skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the ambient light in patterns that seemed to move with their emotions. Eyes large and luminous studied the humans calmly. Their movements were fluid, deliberate, as if each gesture carried meaning. Auric felt a strange pull, a mixture of fear and awe, but he reminded himself to remain professional. "Stay alert," Mara whispered, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Observe, but do not engage. They're sensitive to emotion. They can sense your intent." Auric nodded, taking a deep breath. His mind raced. Intent. They can read intent. That's incredible. But it also means they're intelligent, highly intelligent. He raised his scanner cautiously, careful not to make sudden movements. The Veyari females did not shy away. Instead, they watched, almost as if curious about these strange creatures that had come from the stars. Hours passed. The humans set up a temporary camp on the edge of a glowing meadow. While the team busied themselves with instruments and notes, Auric wandered quietly toward the edge of the meadow, drawn by the sight of one Veyari female who had moved apart from the group. Her name, he would later learn, was Lysera. She stood beneath a tall crystal tree, its branches hanging with glowing fruit that pulsed softly. Lysera tilted her head, observing the human quietly. Auric's heart thudded, but he forced himself to remain calm. Slowly, He lifted a small holographic device and projected a simple greeting in light patterns, hoping it would be understood. Lysera's eyes widened, not in fear, but in interest. She mirrored his movements, cautiously extending a glowing, tendril-like limb in a gesture that seemed like curiosity. For a long moment there was silence between them. Then, in a delicate swirl of light, she responded, creating a pattern that resembled a smile. Orcs's pulse quickened. He had read about this in reports. The Veyari communicated through patterns of light and subtle motion, a language almost impossible for other species to comprehend. Yet here, in this small moment, a bridge had been formed. He glanced back at the human camp. Mara was busy with her instruments, oblivious to the first real contact happening just meters away. The rest of the team kept a cautious distance, wary of the Veyari females. So far, so good, Orc thought. No harm done, and maybe, just maybe, understanding is possible. As the twin suns dipped closer to the horizon, the colors of the planet shifted. The glowing forests deepened into rich purples and blues, and the city above the water began to reflect the sunset in a dazzling display. Orc felt a strange sense of peace, even as his mind raced with questions. Who are these beings? What do they know about the universe that we don't? And what can humans offer them? Night on Valara brought new wonders. Bioluminescent creatures filled the sky like floating stars. The air thrummed with energy, and the Veyari females moved gracefully among the glowing flora, their bodies leaving trails of light that lingered for seconds before fading. Orc stayed near Lysera, careful not to startle her. He watched her study the glowing plants, her fingers trailing through the air as she seemed to draw patterns of light from them. "Lieutenant Kane," a voice called softly. Mara had joined him, her expression a mix of worry and fascination. "You're too close. You know the rules." "I know," Orc said quietly, not taking his eyes off Lysera. "But they're not hostile. Not really, they're curious." Mara frowned. "Curious can be dangerous, especially for humans. Don't forget that." Orc nodded, though his mind was made up. Some rules are meant to be tested. As night deepened, a low hum resonated through the meadow. It was not mechanical, nor entirely natural. The Veyari females paused, tilting their heads, sensing something beyond human comprehension. Lysera's eyes locked on Orc, and for the first time, he felt the faintest pulse of their psychic awareness. Not threatening, but probing, almost like an invitation to understand. Orc took a cautious step forward. He mirrored her gesture, moving slowly, deliberately. The connection was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Light flickered across Lysera's skin in a pattern that Orc instinctively recognized as approval. For a moment, the vast distance between species seemed to vanish. Suddenly, one of the floating crystal towers above the city pulsed brightly, sending a ripple of light across the landscape. The humans froze, unsure if it was a warning or an invitation. The Veyari females did not react with fear. They seemed to accept it as part of the night's rhythm. Lysera extended a hand toward Orc, not touching, but signaling trust. Orc's chest tightened with awe. Never before had he experienced such an unspoken communication. It was not words, not gestures. It was understanding. For the first time in history, a human had begun to connect with a Veyari female without fear, without coercion, simply through presence and intent. Hours later, the Odyssey's crew gathered near the meadow, sharing findings and speculating on the behavior of the Veyari. None of them spoke of Orc's encounter, though a quiet excitement lingered in the air. For the humans, the night had been one of observation. For Orc, it had been the beginning of something extraordinary, a bridge between worlds, built not with technology or weapons, but with courage and understanding. As the twin suns finally disappeared beneath the horizon, Auric remained with Lysera for a few more minutes, watching the patterns of light that swirled around her. Then he stepped back, respecting the distance that still existed. He knew that trust had to be earned slowly, carefully, but for the first time, hope burned in his chest. Humanity might finally have a chance to prove itself on Valara. And somewhere deep in the glow of the alien meadow, Auric felt that Valara was watching him back, with curiosity, intelligence, and perhaps even a hint of approval. The morning sun rose over Valara, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and violet. Mist drifted across the glowing meadows, and the rivers reflected the twin suns in sparkling ripples. Lieutenant Auric Kane woke before the rest of the crew, his mind still alive with the memory of the previous night. The connection he had felt with Lysera lingered, delicate but real. He felt an irresistible pull toward the floating city, the heart of the Veyari civilization. "Auric, come on!" called Dr. Mara Elson from the camp. "Breakfast is ready, and the team wants to start scanning the energy fields near the city. We can't waste time." Auric nodded, but he did not move immediately. His gaze turned toward the crystalline towers above. "I need to understand them better. I need to communicate, not just observe." He followed the trail leading to the edge of the city, keeping low among the glowing flora. The air smelled sweet and alive, filled with the quiet hum of energy that the Veyari seemed to radiate naturally. Each step brought him closer to the floating towers. From a distance, he could see small figures moving gracefully across the city's surfaces, females and males alike. Though the females were always the ones in the open, their presence commanding yet calm. Auric carefully adjusted his scanning devices, not to interfere, but to gather information. He noticed something remarkable. The Veyari emitted faint pulses of light from their skin, patterns that shifted with their emotions and thoughts. It was subtle, but he was certain it was a form of communication, perhaps even more powerful than words. He crouched behind a crystal formation and observed Lysera again. She moved with purpose, collecting samples of glowing plants and seemingly speaking in patterns of light to herself. She was unaware of Auric's presence, yet he could feel that faint psychic awareness brushing against his mind, curious, gentle, testing. "Lieutenant Kane," a voice whispered near him. Mara had followed quietly, her brow furrowed with concern. "You're getting too close. Remember the warnings. You don't know how they'll react if they sense fear, or worse, aggression." "I know," Auric whispered back, not taking his eyes off Lysera. "But she isn't hostile. She's observing, learning maybe, like I am." Mara sighed, shaking her head. "Just be careful. One wrong move and this could turn into a disaster." Auric nodded. He had no intention of moving recklessly. Instead, he began to experiment with subtle gestures. He held out a hand slowly, palm open, and projected a soft holographic pattern of light, a simple wave combined with a spiral. It was non-threatening, friendly, and curious. Lysera froze for a moment, her large, luminous eyes locking on the pattern. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, she extended a limb in a mirrored gesture. The soft glow along her skin shifted in response to Auric's holographic display, forming a pattern that almost looked like a smile. Auric's heart raced. "She's responding. She understands that I mean no harm." For the next few hours, they continued this silent exchange. Auric would create small patterns of light, sometimes simple shapes or movements, and Lysera would answer with corresponding motions. Each interaction built a small bridge between them. It was not full communication, not yet, but enough to understand intention, curiosity, and trust. Meanwhile, the rest of the human crew busied themselves with equipment, scanning energy fields, taking soil samples, and recording the city's architecture. None of them noticed Auric's secret interaction. Only Mara watched quietly from the distance, unsure whether to intervene or let him continue. The breakthrough came when Auric noticed a strange object near Lysera, a floating orb, transparent with a soft core of pulsing light. It hovered above the ground, rotating slowly. He gestured toward it, projecting a question pattern in light. Lysera's eyes widened, and the orb suddenly moved closer to her hand as if acknowledging the inquiry. Auric realized it was a form of technology, but unlike anything humans had seen. It was alive in a way, almost sentient, responding to intention rather than command. He carefully extended a small hand, palm open, toward the orb. Lysera mirrored the movement, and the orb floated between them. A soft pulse of light passed through both their hands. The sensation was unlike anything Auric had experienced. It was not pain or pleasure, but connection, an exchange of energy, curiosity, and awareness. He felt Lysera's thoughts brush against his mind. Trust, patience, understanding. He stepped back slightly, bowing his head in respect. The orb hovered, then slowly floated back toward Lysera. She nodded, acknowledging his gesture. For a moment, the distance between species felt smaller, almost insignificant. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed from the floating city above. Both Auric and Lysera turned. A small group of Veyari males appeared, their forms angular and more rigid than the females. They seemed to notice the interaction and moved with authority toward Lysera. The subtle glow of their skin shifted into sharp geometric patterns, warning signs. Auric froze. He knew the males were protective. Any mistake could be disastrous. He raised his hands slowly, showing no threat. Lysera stepped slightly forward, placing herself between him and the approaching males. Her glow intensified, forming a protective aura around both of them. The males stopped, observing. Then, after a tense moment, they turned away, retreating into the city. Lysera exhaled softly, and Auric realized he had passed the first true test. Not of courage, but of trust. She had chosen to stand with him, risking the scrutiny of her own society. Exhilarated but cautious, Auric lowered himself to sit on the glowing grass. Lysera mirrored him, lowering her luminous form gracefully to the ground. Their patterns of light flickered, interacting like a delicate dance. Auric began to experiment with simple symbols, a circle for hello, a triangle for friend, a spiral for curiosity. Lysera responded immediately, creating patterns that matched his intent. Hours passed. The humans in the camp noticed strange flickers of light from the meadow and came over to investigate. Mara gasped quietly. "He's communicating," she whispered, "with a Veyari female. Successfully." The team gathered, observing without interfering. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others with amazement. Auric realized that this was more than a first contact. It was proof that humans could bridge a gap that other species had feared. It was proof of human ingenuity, patience, and empathy. As the twin suns reached their zenith, the floating city emitted a low, resonant hum. The sound seemed to vibrate through the air, through the ground, through the very bones of the humans. The Veyari females all paused, their glow shifting in unison. Auric felt a deep resonance in his mind, a gentle acknowledgement from the society itself, as if they had noticed and accepted his cautious courage. "Lieutenant Kane," Mara said softly, "you've done something no human has done before. You've earned their attention." Auric nodded, careful not to let his excitement show too much. "It's just the beginning," he said quietly. "We still have to prove ourselves. We have to show that humans can be trusted, not just by Lysera, but by all of them." Lysera rose gracefully and extended a glowing tendril toward him. Auric mirrored her movement. The connection was subtle, intimate in a way words could never express. He felt her thoughts brush against his again. observe, learn, share. A sudden movement caught his eye. A small creature, glowing faintly like the plants, scuttled near them. It carried a tiny crystal, which it dropped near Orcs' foot. Lysera's eyes glimmered as she gestured toward it. Auric understood immediately. It was an offering, a gift of trust, a test of comprehension. He picked up the crystal carefully, examining it. Its energy pulsed gently in his hand, and he felt a connection to the planet itself. He looked at Lysera, and she nodded, a gesture of approval. This is what trust looks like here, he realized. And now, I have to respect it. The day passed in a blur of observation and careful communication. Auric and Lysera continued to exchange patterns of light, sharing ideas about simple concepts: water, food, movement, friendship. Each exchange was small, yet it built an unspoken understanding. The humans around them watched in awe, realizing that a human had begun to do what many thought impossible. As the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, Auric and Lysera paused. She gestured toward the floating city, then toward him. The meaning was clear. She wanted him to follow, to step further into her world. The thought thrilled and terrified him at the same time. He turned to Mara, who nodded slowly. If you go carefully. Remember, one wrong move could ruin everything. Auric nodded. I understand. But this is the chance of a lifetime. And maybe it's the chance for all of humanity. With that, he stepped toward Lysera, leaving the glowing meadow behind. The floating towers loomed above, beautiful and intimidating. Auric felt the weight of the unknown, but also a surge of courage. For the first time, a human was about to step into the heart of the Veyari civilization. The floating city of the Veyari was unlike anything Auric Kane had ever imagined. Towers of crystal and light hovered above the glowing oceans, linked by bridges of shimmering energy that shifted with every step. Soft pulses of color radiated from the surfaces, as though the entire city was alive and breathing. Auric walked carefully beside Lysera, feeling both awe and apprehension. Every movement of the Veyari around them was precise, graceful, and full of meaning, and he knew that any mistake could cost him the fragile trust he had begun to build. You will need to prove yourself here, Lysera said, her voice gentle in his mind, not with words but through the same subtle connection they had been sharing. The thought reached him as clearly as if she had spoken aloud. The others must know your intent is pure. Auric nodded. I understand. I want to learn, not harm. I want to understand your people. Lysera's glow brightened slightly, as if acknowledging his sincerity. They moved deeper into the city, crossing bridges of light that shifted under their feet. The energy of the Veyari seemed to flow through the air itself, and Auric felt a strange tingling sensation in his chest. He realized that these beings were not only intelligent, but also deeply connected to the world around them. Their society had evolved in harmony with the planet, not against it. Soon, they arrived at a large open plaza, at the center of which stood a group of Veyari females and males. The females' glows were soft but sharp, while the males carried a more angular, geometric pattern across their bodies. All eyes turned toward the human. Auric felt a sudden rush of nerves. He had anticipated curiosity. But this was far more intense than he had imagined. You must demonstrate understanding, Lysera conveyed, her glow forming a spiral that pulsed gently. The tests are not dangerous, but they are important. They measure intent, empathy, and reason. Only then can you move freely among us. Auric nodded again. I am ready. The first trial involved observation. The Veyari led him to a large garden suspended in mid-air, its plants glowing in soft blues and greens. A delicate puzzle had been constructed here. Plants with luminous fruits were arranged in patterns that required careful attention to detail. Orcs' task was to replicate the pattern using the same types of plants, without touching the original ones. At first it seemed simple, but he quickly realized the challenge. Each plant responded to intention, not physical touch. Moving a branch incorrectly caused the glow to flicker and shift, sometimes confusing the pattern. Arik focused intently, centering his thoughts and observing the flow of energy from the plants. Slowly, carefully, he moved each element, projecting a calm intent rather than forcing it. The pattern stabilized, mirroring the original arrangement perfectly. A soft wave of light pulsed through the plaza. Lysira's glow brightened, and the watching Veyari murmured among themselves, not in words but through subtle shifts of light. Arik felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. He had passed the first trial, demonstrating patience, attention, and empathy. The second trial was more challenging. It involved a small creature native to Valara, glowing faintly like a floating star. The creature had to be guided through a complex maze suspended above a pool of luminous water. Humans often tried to force or control the creature, which led to failure. Arik quickly understood that the task required understanding the creature's intentions and cooperating with it. He extended his hands slowly, palms open, projecting calm, encouraging patterns of light. The creature paused, observing him with luminous eyes. Then, almost imperceptibly, it began to follow the rhythm he projected. Step by step through twists and turns, Arik guided the creature to the center of the maze. The Veyari females glowed brightly, a clear signal of approval, while the males shifted in measured acknowledgement. Arik's chest swelled with quiet pride. He had never felt so connected to an alien world before. It was not brute strength or speed that mattered here, but empathy, patience, and understanding. He realized that humans had qualities that even the most advanced alien races might underestimate: adaptability, curiosity, and determination. The third trial tested intellect. The Veyari presented a problem involving the flow of energy through the city's structures. Certain energy channels had become unstable, and a solution had to be found to prevent disruption of the floating towers. Arik examined the setup carefully. Using human engineering principles, he proposed rerouting energy flows temporarily to balance the instability. The Veyari observed silently. When Arik implemented the solution, the towers stabilized, and soft hums of approval echoed through the plaza. Lysira's glow formed complex, interwoven patterns of light, a Veyari sign of respect. Arik felt the full weight of his achievement. Here he was, a human, solving problems in a society that had evolved far beyond Earth technology, not through imitation, but through his own reasoning. For the final trial, Arik had to demonstrate trustworthiness. He was led to a chamber suspended in mid-air, where the most delicate Veyari artifacts were displayed, crystals that contained the memory of past generations, glowing softly with knowledge. He was instructed to retrieve one and study it without damaging it. Arik's hands trembled slightly as he lifted a crystal. He could feel the subtle pulse of information within it, the weight of centuries of understanding. Carefully, he held it, projecting calm intent, and examined the patterns of light flowing inside. The crystal responded, illuminating his path and revealing new insights. When he returned it to its place without a scratch, the chamber itself seemed to glow in acknowledgement. Lysira approached him, her glow forming a delicate spiral around his body. "You have passed the trials," she communicated softly. "You have shown patience, understanding, intellect, and respect. You may walk among us as a guest, and perhaps in time, as a friend." Arik felt a mixture of awe and humility. He had not expected to be welcomed so completely. "Thank you," he replied quietly. "I want to learn everything I can." and I want to help in any way possible. Lysera nodded. Then your journey has only just begun. As they walked through the city, Arik noticed how seamlessly humans and Veyari could begin to cooperate. Though the humans were guests, their presence was no longer met with fear. The Veyari seemed intrigued by their determination, their curiosity, and their ability to adapt. Arik realized that this acceptance was rare. He was witnessing the first real integration between humans and an alien race of such advanced capabilities. Evening fell, and the city glowed softly under the light of Valara's twin moons. Arik and Lysera reached a terrace overlooking the oceans below. Waves of bioluminescent organisms created patterns of light across the water. Lysera gestured toward the horizon. Tomorrow, she communicated, you will meet the council. They will decide how much you may learn and how far you may integrate. Do not fear. Be honest, and they will see your intent. Arik nodded. He understood that the trials were not just tests of skill, but of character. Humans had always been underestimated in interstellar encounters, but here his honesty, empathy, and courage were being recognized. This is what makes humanity strong, he thought, our ability to adapt, to learn, and to persevere. That night, as the humans returned to their camp on the edge of the city, Arik stayed with Lysera on the terrace. They shared more silent communication, exchanging thoughts through patterns of light and subtle psychic resonance. He learned about the Veyari's history, their philosophy of coexistence with nature, and their view of the universe as a living, interconnected system. In turn, Arik shared what he could about humanity, Earth, its diversity, its struggles, and its triumphs. Though words were limited, the intent behind his thoughts shone through. Lysera's glow shifted with each story, reflecting understanding and curiosity. As dawn approached, Arik realized that he had passed far more than the Veyari trials. He had begun to understand a culture that seemed almost magical, and in doing so, he had begun to understand himself and the potential of his species. Humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, but they had something unique, the ability to connect, to adapt, and to earn trust in ways others might never attempt. The council awaited him tomorrow. He did not know what challenges lay ahead, but he felt ready. For the first time in his life, Arik Kane was not just a human among aliens. He was a bridge, a representative of humanity's courage, curiosity, and perseverance. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the floating towers, painting them with gold and pink, Arik felt a deep sense of purpose. He had come to Valara seeking discovery. What he had found was far greater, a chance to prove the strength of humanity, not through force, but through understanding. The floating city of the Veyari gleamed under the twin suns, serene yet alive with energy. The air vibrated gently, filled with the soft hum of power flowing through the towers and bridges. Arik Kane had never felt so aware of a place. Every step, every movement carried significance. He had passed the trials, earned trust, and even shared silent communication with Lysera, but he knew that true acceptance would come only when humans proved their worth through action. That opportunity came sooner than anyone expected. It began with a distant rumble. At first it was barely noticeable, a vibration underfoot, like the gentle pulse of a heartbeat. Then the hum of the city shifted, becoming uneven and chaotic. Light flickered across the towers, and the soft energy bridges wavered as if the city itself were trembling. Humans and Veyari alike stopped, sensing danger. "What is happening?" Mara asked, her voice tense as she held her scanning device steady. Lysera's glow darkened slightly, her patterns sharp and angular, a clear sign of alarm. "A storm approaches," she projected to Arik's mind. "Not a normal one. Something powerful, unpredictable. The city's energy fields cannot withstand it fully. You must help." Arik swallowed. He had studied alien technology, but nothing like this. The floating city depended on energy fields to remain aloft, delicate yet massive in scale. If they failed, entire sections could collapse into the glowing oceans below. But fear gave way to resolve. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and their ingenuity often made the difference. "Everyone stay calm," Auric called to his team. "We need to assess the energy grid and stabilize it. Follow my instructions carefully." The human crew nodded, moving with precision. Auric directed them to key control points, combining their Earth knowledge with insights he had gained from observing the Veyari systems. Lysera hovered near him, projecting guidance through subtle patterns of light, showing which nodes were critical and which could be safely rerouted. The storm arrived like a wall of energy, crashing against the floating city in waves of charged particles. The hum of the towers became a roar, and sections of the energy bridges flickered dangerously. Auric's heart raced, but he focused on the task. He could not rely on raw strength. He needed calm, strategy, and understanding. "Divert power to stabilizer nodes 1 through 6, he instructed, pointing to the panels on the control interface. "Increase field density gradually, don't overload it." The crew worked with speed and precision, guided by Auric's voice and Lysera's light patterns. The storm pounded the city, but slowly the towers stopped flickering and the bridges stabilized. A wave of relief swept through Auric. "We're doing it," he thought. "We're holding them steady." Then came a more urgent problem. One of the main towers began to tilt slightly, its energy field wavering dangerously. If it collapsed, the shock wave could destabilize surrounding structures. Auric realized the solution required a human touch. The tower's interface was partly biological, partly technological, something the Veyari understood instinctively. But humans had to adapt to on the fly. Auric moved toward the tower, feeling the hum of its energy. Lysera followed, her glow calm but supportive. He reached out to the control panel and, with careful observation, mimicked the gestures he had seen the Veyari use. The system responded, stabilizing temporarily, but he could feel it still struggling. "Lieutenant Kane," Mara called, "the energy is spiking. It won't hold much longer." Auric didn't panic. He thought quickly, combining logic with instinct. On Earth, humans often used feedback loops to stabilize systems. He applied the same principle here, adjusting the energy flow to create a steady rhythm that the city could handle. Slowly the tilt corrected itself, and the tower stabilized. A cheer rose from the human crew, but Auric barely noticed. The city was still under threat. The storm continued to press against them, and he knew that this was far from over. Lysera gestured toward a section of the city that seemed most vulnerable, a cluster of towers linked by delicate bridges. The energy fields were under tremendous strain. Auric realized that if those bridges failed, many lives could be lost. He quickly formulated a plan. "Team," he said, "we need to reroute energy from the outer nodes to reinforce these bridges. Move fast, but carefully. Keep communication constant." Humans and Veyari worked together, a sight Auric would never forget. The Veyari projected light patterns to guide the humans, and Auric translated those into instructions the crew could follow. It was a perfect example of cooperation across species. The storm reached its peak. Lightning-like arcs of energy crashed against the city, sending waves of force across the bridges. Auric moved along the pathways, manually adjusting nodes and coordinating with the crew. At one point, a sudden surge knocked him off balance, and he stumbled, narrowly avoiding a collapse into the glowing water below. Lysera reached out instinctively, her glow forming a protective shield around him. "Keep going," he shouted, adrenaline surging. "We're almost there." Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the city stabilized. The energy fields hummed steadily, bridges and towers glowing brightly, undamaged by the storm. The humans and Veyari alike breathed deeply, relief washing over them. Lysera's glow shifted in a complex pattern, her highest form of approval. You have helped us. You have shown courage, intelligence, and respect. You honor your species. Auric nodded, feeling the weight of her words. It was teamwork, he said. Humans and Veyari, together. The council of Veyari males and females appeared shortly after the storm passed. Their glows were calm and steady, a sign of approval rather than judgment. They approached Auric, and the leader, an elder female with luminous silver skin, extended a tendril toward him. You have proven yourself, she communicated, not only in understanding, but in action. You and your species have value. We will learn from each other. Auric felt a surge of pride, but also humility. He knew this was bigger than him. It was about humanity proving that courage, intellect, and compassion could make a real difference in the universe. The council invited him and Lysera to the central hall, a magnificent chamber of crystal and light. Here, the humans could observe the inner workings of Veyari society. Patterns of light streamed across the walls, recording history, knowledge, and culture. Auric marveled at the complexity and beauty. The Veyari were not just advanced, they were harmonious, balancing intellect, emotion, and connection with their world. As Auric explored the chamber, he began to understand why humans had been underestimated. The Veyari had never seen beings that could combine empathy, intelligence, and adaptability so effectively. Humans were resilient, capable of creativity and quick thinking under pressure. And now, Auric had shown them that humans could act with respect and courage, even in life-threatening situations. Lysera guided him to a balcony overlooking the ocean. The waters below shimmered with bioluminescent creatures. Reflecting the twin moons rising in the distance, the calm after the storm was breathtaking. You have done well, Lysera communicated. Your people have potential. Not all of us see it yet. But tonight, you have shown what can be achieved when fear is set aside and understanding guides action. Auric nodded. I hope this is only the beginning, he said quietly. We want to learn. We want to help. We want to build trust, not just survive. Lysera's glow pulsed softly, almost like a smile. Then we will begin a new chapter together. Your courage has opened the door. Later, as the humans returned to their camp, they were met with admiration from the Veyari. The storm had been a test of strength, yes, but more importantly, a test of character. Auric realized that humans had proven their value not through weapons or technology, but through ingenuity, collaboration, and courage under pressure. That night, as Auric lay beneath the glowing sky, he reflected on the events. Humans had always been underestimated in the galaxy. Yet here, on Velara, they had earned respect through the very traits that made them unique: intelligence, empathy, adaptability, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. He thought of Lysera, her glow bright and welcoming in his memory. She had trusted him when others might have feared him. Together they had saved a city, a society, and perhaps in time, the potential for lasting friendship between species. The twin moons of Velara rose high above, casting silver light across the floating towers. Auric felt hope. The storm had tested him and humanity, and they had passed. The path ahead would still be full of challenges. But he was ready. This is what humanity can achieve, he thought. Not through dominance or fear, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to stand together, even with beings far beyond our own understanding. And somewhere in the heart of the city, Auric knew, the Veyari were watching, not as wary strangers, but as potential allies. The day after the storm, the floating city of the Veyari shimmered in the twin suns' light, calm and alive with energy. Auric Kane stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing ocean below. The events of the previous day replayed in his mind: the storm, the tense moments, and the human crew's quick thinking. But most of all, he thought of the trust he had earned from Lysera and her people. The city had accepted him as more than a visitor. Humans had proven that they could act with intelligence, empathy, and courage. Now it was time to take the next step, meeting the council and determining humanity's place among the Veyari. Lysera appeared at his side, her luminous form moving with the same grace he had come to admire. "The council is ready," she communicated. "They will decide how humans may participate in our society. Your actions yesterday speak for themselves, but they will want to see the long view, your intent, your wisdom, your heart." Auric nodded. "I'm ready. I'll do my best." The council chamber was a vast dome of crystal and light, suspended high above the floating city. Patterns of illumination shifted constantly, recording history, knowledge, and emotion. Veyari from across the city had gathered, their forms glowing softly, observing the human who had dared to connect with one of their own. The leader, a silver-skinned female elder named Elira, approached Auric. Her glow was steady, calm, yet carried authority. "Lieutenant Kane," she projected, "you have proven your courage and understanding, but your species is new to our ways. You must demonstrate that your intentions are not limited to individual bravery. You must show that humanity can contribute to our society without fear, greed, or harm." Auric took a deep breath. "I understand," he said. "Humans have made mistakes in the past, yes. But we also have the ability to learn, to adapt, and to act with care. We want to understand your people, your world, and in return, share knowledge, friendship, and cooperation." A low murmur of approval spread through the chamber, expressed in the subtle shifts of light among the Veyari. Lysera's glow pulsed in encouragement. The council presented the first test, a challenge of cooperation. Several energy nodes had been destabilized in a distant section of the city during the storm. The task was to stabilize them using a combination of Veyari knowledge and human ingenuity. Auric stepped forward confidently. He instructed his human crew to prepare their equipment while he studied the energy nodes. Lysera moved beside him, projecting subtle guidance. Together, they began rerouting energy flows, combining human problem-solving with Veyari intuition. It was not easy. The nodes reacted unpredictably, requiring careful timing and constant adjustment. But Auric noticed something important. Humans were flexible. Where the Veyari relied on intuition and pattern recognition, humans could experiment, improvise, and adapt in real time. Slowly, the nodes stabilized, their glow brightening and pulsing in harmony with the city. The council observed closely. Elira extended a limb toward Auric, her glow forming a complex spiral pattern, the highest sign of Veyari respect. "You have succeeded. You show the qualities necessary for true partnership." Next came a challenge of empathy. The Veyari presented a situation in which one of their floating bridges had been damaged, trapping several younglings. Humans had never been tested in this way before, as the Veyari rarely allowed outsiders to intervene in delicate matters. Auric understood immediately. This was a test not of skill, but of care. Without hesitation, he led a rescue operation, coordinating humans and Veyari alike. They moved carefully, guiding the younglings across the bridge while stabilizing the fragile structure. Each step required calm, patience, and precise coordination. When the last Veyari reached safety, the council signaled approval. Auric realized that the lesson was clear. Human courage combined with empathy could be a powerful force. Finally, the council sought to test the humans' long-term commitment. They presented a puzzle. The city had a series of floating gardens that relied on delicate energy flows. One section had been disrupted by the storm, and it could not be repaired by Veyari alone. The humans were asked to design a solution that would not only restore balance, but improve resilience for the future. Orcs studied the problem carefully. Using human engineering concepts and observations from Veyari design, he proposed a system that redistributed energy, added fail-safes, and allowed for monitoring of fluctuations. Lysera assisted with subtle adjustments. But the main idea came from the human perspective: logic, creativity, and forward thinking. The council examined the plan. Slowly, their glows shifted in approval. Elira approached Arik again. "You have not only solved the problem but improved it. Your species has a way of seeing possibilities we may overlook. This is why cooperation is valuable." Arik felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but also humility. Humans had proven that they could learn, adapt, and contribute meaningfully, even in a society far advanced beyond Earth. He thought of the crew, the small humans who had risked so much during the storm, and felt proud of what they had achieved together. The council then allowed the humans to explore the city freely. Arik and Lysera walked along the bridges of light, observing gardens that floated in mid-air, crystalline towers that shimmered with knowledge, and creatures that seemed alive with energy itself. "You have opened a door," Lysera communicated softly. "The others are curious. They will want to learn from you, as you learn from them." Arik nodded. "I hope we can continue to show our worth, not just through action, but through understanding and cooperation." Days passed. Humans began to work alongside the Veyari in research, exploration, and problem-solving. They shared techniques for energy manipulation, structural stability, and environmental observation. In return, they learned about Veyari philosophy, culture, and technology. Mutual respect grew, and slowly the initial fear and hesitation faded. Arik's bond with Lysera deepened as well. They communicated through light and subtle psychic resonance, learning from each other not only about their respective worlds, but about themselves. Arik realized that humans could bring more than technology or strength. They could bring curiosity, empathy, and creative solutions that complemented Veyari understanding. The final sign of trust came when the council invited the humans to participate in a traditional ceremony, a celebration of cooperation between species. Humans stood alongside Veyari, learning the patterns of light that told stories of history, achievement, and hope. When Arik mirrored a complex pattern correctly, Lysera's glow pulsed brightly in pride, and the council's light shifted in recognition. "You are no longer just visitors," Elira communicated. "You are allies. You have shown that courage, empathy, and intelligence can create bridges between worlds." Arik felt a warmth he had never known. Humanity had always struggled to prove itself beyond Earth, but here, on Valara, they had earned respect. Not through force, not through dominance, but through the qualities that defined them: curiosity, adaptability, courage, and compassion. As night fell over the floating city, the twin moons reflected on the glowing oceans below. Arik stood with Lysera on a terrace, watching the patterns of bioluminescence swirl across the water. He realized that this was more than a personal victory. It was a step toward a new era, one in which humans and Veyari could learn from each other, grow together, and face the universe as partners. "Do you think humans are ready?" he asked quietly. Lysera's glow pulsed in soft reassurance. "Humans have much to learn, but your species has proven itself worthy. You have shown courage when others might have fled, patience when others might have rushed, and wisdom when others might have ignored it. You are ready to walk among us." Arik smiled. "Then let's make the most of it. Together." The city hummed softly around them, alive and thriving. Somewhere deep within the towers, Arik knew the Veyari recorded this moment as the first true partnership between humans and their kind. It was the start of something new, an era where fear was replaced by understanding, where caution was replaced by cooperation, and where humans had finally proven their potential among the stars. Arik Kane took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the city beneath him, and for the first time, he truly understood the meaning of humanity's strength. It was not weapons or technology alone that made humans remarkable. It was their curiosity, their courage, and their ability to reach out, even when others dared not. And so, as the twin moons cast silver light over the floating towers of Valara, Arik knew that this was only the beginning. A new era had begun, not just for humans, not just for the Veyari, but for the future they could build together, united by trust, respect, and the courage to reach across the impossible. For the first time in history, humans and Veyari walked side by side, ready to face the universe as allies, friends, and partners. And in that shared glow of hope and understanding, the stars themselves seemed brighter.